In this video, I want to show you how you can create a mind map to display some content. The first step will be to define your central topic, the topic from which you want to identify, you want to find out what type of information you can collect and organize. This central topic must be short, it must be clear, it must be demonstrative, and it must be well defined. It means that people must understand what it is. In our example, we will take into account the different carbon structures. When you have this central topic in mind, the second step will be to find some order, some organization. The best way to proceed initially is to figure out, when you think about it, when you think about the carbon structures, if you can manage to identify different classes of carbon structures. A way to sort them could be, for instance, between natural and artificial forms of carbon. We will choose for our mind map the different dimensions of carbon structures. Usually, when you begin with a well-defined organization in your mind map, you will notice after starting a little bit that it's not very efficient. So you will try to find another type of order to describe them and restart from scratch. With the classification we have selected, the different dimensions of carbon structures, we can start our mind map and we will create it by hand. Here's the beginning of my mind map. The central topic is carbon structure, and I will expand it with the different types of dimension from 0 to 3D. When you create a mind map by hand, it's always good to try to highlight it by defining different shapes, different type of arrows, etc. In this example, we'll stick with one single color, black, but you are invited to use different colors. What is very important is to come with a clear description and a clear structure of the different items in your mind map. The third step will be to start to brainstorm. If you don't know how to start your mind map, you can try to find out what you know already about the carbon structures and start to enter this knowledge into your mind map. So, first, you write everything you already know. This is important, and if you squeeze your brain a little bit, you'll see that you know probably a little bit more than you thought. Try to remember, and you will place on the map everything you know already. In this example, if I think about 1D carbon fibers come to my mind. For the 3D, I think about diamond, amorphous carbon, etc. For 2D, I think about graphite. Now, with this starting mind map, the next step will be to dig in a little bit more into our current knowledge. It means that you will add any additional details you might know. So you see that in this first part, what we really try to find and report is all the information we already know. By doing this, I will improve the information I report about the carbon structures. For example, I know that diamonds can be either natural or industrial. For carbon nanotubes, I know there are some carbon nanotubes with a single wall and some carbon nanotubes with multi-walls. When it's done, it's time to search for more information. And you can find this information from books, internet, scientific database, Wikipedia, any source you can access. For this specific example, I decided to just use Wikipedia at the rubric allotropes of carbon. Allotropes are actually all the different shapes of carbon, so it's in total agreement with my own topic. And I just add the content collected from Wikipedia. Of course, if you want to obtain a more complete description, you are more than strongly encouraged to use more than one source. With Wikipedia, we find all the allotropes of carbons with new structures we had no idea of. But as I said, some other sources will find other types of carbon or will provide more information or more details about some specific shapes. Now I can complete my mind map by adding all the different types of carbon structures I found on Wikipedia. Because my map was already structured, it's easier to place all this information in specific nodes in my mind map. For example, for 3D carbon, I identified different types of amorphous carbon. I have coal, I have soot, I have carbon black. So I can really develop my network of nodes by adding additional branches. Something important to remember. When you are done with this step, you must look at what you have done and try to find new links between the different nodes of your mind map. Maybe the new content will help you to think to other information you had forgotten initially. It's important to plot all the lines, all the connectors you could imagine. If you see that the result is too messy, it could be because the initial order you have chosen was not the best one. Then you can think of another structure for your mind map. So you question, you search, you see if some other topics exist, if some nodes can be linked, you look for any missing element. This is my mind map now. I've highlighted in orange all the new types of structure I found from other sources. I found also some additional links between nodes. They are drawn in gray lines. In this mind map, you see that I have now much more information than I thought initially. But of course, it's quite messy, it's disorganized. So, it's time for me to finalize my mind map and to reposition all the nodes. This is usually the time to duplicate your mind map on another page when you will rewrite properly, improve your drawing, add colors, maybe glue some pictures, and mostly reorganize. You can do this by hand because the time you spend building this mind map is a time when you have been focused and when you could better memorize all this information than just looking at a table on a book. You can also use the software. There are some free softwares and you can organize and have some additional features added to your notes like photos, pictures, etc. Note now something very important. If you want to share your mind map and if you want to keep track of the information and sources, never forget to add your bibliographic references. I converted my previous drawing in a digital map using the View program from Delft University. It's a free software, very powerful, very performant. With a digital map, you can always reorganize, add new nodes, new connections as you collect more information. Here is now how my mind map about carbon structures look like. Let's have a closer look at it right now. Let's have a closer look at the mind map on the carbon structures we've created. This mind map is based on the different dimensions of carbon structure: 0D, 1D, 2D, 3D. Let's look at one branch, the 0D. You see that we have identified some structures like atomic carbon, diatomic carbon, carbon nanoparticles, and some other structures like buckyball nanostructures have different structural variation. There is the fluorite C540, the C70 fluorine, or the C60 fluorine. We see also that the C60 is connected to another node, the carbon P bond, because it's a combination of 0D and 1D nanostructure. We have also the carbon nanobuds, a mixture of 1D object. In a closer look, we see additional information like a photo of the structure. And this is what we can do with the software, adding much more information inside our mind map. Let's look now at the 3D carbon. Instead of listing directly all types of 3D carbon, I've decided to divide them in two groups. Let's call them subclasses: dense carbon and porous carbon. For the porous carbon, we have amorphous carbon with different types of materials like coal, carbon black, or soot. We have also the family of mesoporous carbon, or the carbide-derived carbon, or even the carbon nanoform. Something very important when we build mind maps is not only to place and organize the different nodes, but also to create the right connections between all these nodes. Our current mind map is a radial mind map. We start from the central topic, carbon structures, and we develop different branches and sub-branches from it. But you could also have some connections between nodes that don't belong to the same branch. For example, in the 1D carbon structure, we have carbon nanotubes. But there's also 2D thin films made with carbon nanotubes. So it's a film with a 2D structure, but made of 1D objects, carbon nanotubes. Therefore, we create a link here to show that there is a connection. Here's finally the complete view of our mind map with topic and links. I also use pictures to illustrate the different systems. Probably you noticed that we have much more forms of carbon than we were initially expecting. I could list them in a table, but displaying them on a 2D map allows me to better understand the differences and similarities. It helps me also to better learn and memorize them, because I can benefit from my visual memory of the structures and their connection. As I said before, don't forget when you use information from other sources to report these sources. All the papers or documents, the books, the web pages, to be sure that you can refer to the actual source. And that's it. Here's how you can create a content-based mind map. If you want to create a mind map to analyze an idea or problem, you will follow almost the same logic. Try to define some order to put everything you know already, then use additional information, like the result of search, teamwork, brainstorming sessions. Finally, the mind map will help us to list and organize these ideas, see if we can define a hierarchy within, and possibly identify new connections.